Your heart feels far away, even when people are standing right in front of you today. You are still there physically, but something inside you never fully arrives in the moment. You listen and you answer back, but your heart still feels completely out of reach to everyone else. Even when someone is kind, true emotional closeness still feels incredibly hard for you to feel. It is like everything gets near you, but nothing seems to get all the way into your tired soul. And that internal distance is becoming much harder to ignore, as the feeling of being alone grows even in a crowded room. You can feel that something inside you has pulled away, retreating into a secret and silent place that no one else can visit. This withdrawal did not happen loudly or with any sudden crisis, but it has changed the very way you experience your life. It did not happen dramatically, but the soft tension around your heart is now always there in the quiet of the room. It happened quietly and constantly over time, until you finally realized that you were inwardly missing from your own world. And now you keep wondering when your heart became this far away, and how the invisible walls became so high and thick. You wonder when connection started feeling harder than it used to, and why you feel so guarded around the people you love. You wonder when the warmth stopped landing the way it once did, leaving you feeling cold even when you are standing in the sun. And you wonder why no one seems able to reach the part of you that hurts, or understand the silent distance you carry. Because your body may be here in the room and present for the world, but your heart feels many miles away from everyone today. You still show up to every event and take your seat at the table, playing your part so perfectly that no one suspects how far away you feel. You still talk and engage in the many conversations of the day, while your internal spirit remains in a state of quiet and heavy silence. You still try to stay connected to the people who are in your life, reaching out across an invisible distance that only you can truly feel. You still say exactly what needs to be said to keep the peace, but the words never seem to bridge the gap in your own heart. But your heart never fully relaxes, even when you are with those you love, as if it is waiting for a moment of safety that never arrives. It stays a little hidden behind the invisible walls of your own protection, keeping you safe from the world while keeping you from being known. You feel a little distant from the laughter and the light of the room, floating in a quiet space where no one else is currently allowed to go. You feel a little unreachable even to those who are standing right beside you, for the warmth they offer never reaches the center of your spirit. And even when no one has done anything wrong or tried to hurt you, you still leave every interaction feeling fundamentally alone today. You still leave feeling untouched by the kindness and the grace of others, carrying a quiet disconnection that hurts more than anyone else can see. Sometimes you leave feeling even emptier than before you entered the room, reminded once again of the connection that is missing from your heart. Because closeness has become something you can clearly see in the lives of others, but it is not something your own soul knows how to feel. But you cannot always feel the bond that is meant to be there, leaving you to navigate the world without the comfort of true belonging. And that secret and persistent distance is incredibly exhausting to carry, draining the energy you need to simply move through your daily life. You spend so much of your spirit simply trying to connect with the world and trying to find a landing place for your own tired heart. You find yourself constantly trying to stay open to the possibility of love, while the shadows of your isolation keep pulling you back into the dark. You are trying to feel near to those who matter most to you, but the path to true connection feels blocked by a heavy and silent wall. And still you find yourself ending up so very far away from the light, lost in the quiet landscape of your own internal story today. So you start wondering if your heart is just too tired for closeness now, and if the capacity for true belonging has finally faded away. You wonder if distance has simply become the way you choose to survive, as you navigate the quiet ache that you keep carrying in total silence. But you must remember that hearts do not move far away for no reason, for every internal distance is a valid response to your journey. You are realizing that this emotional distance is often a form of protection, shielding your spirit from any more weight it cannot carry today. Something deep inside you learned that staying completely open felt unsafe, and your heart decided to prioritize its own survival in the silence. Perhaps it was because of the quiet weight of repeated disappointment that taught you to keep your heart tucked away from the world. Perhaps it was because of a hurt that was never fully heard or healed, leaving a residue of caution in every interaction you have. Maybe it is because you kept giving of yourself without ever feeling deeply met, until you simply had nothing left in your spirit to offer. And over a long period of time, your heart slowly adjusted to the cold, creating a new normal where you no longer expected to be found. You did not arrive at this distance by becoming a cold or unfeeling person, but rather by listening to the soul's need for safety. You simply became much more careful with where you choose to place your light, and much more selective about who gets to see your center. You became careful with the idea of closeness and the risk of being seen. As the memory of past pain remained active in your heart today, you became incredibly careful with your hope for a deeper level of belonging, until the distance felt like the only safe way to live. You became careful with letting people all the way into your internal world, believing that the silence of isolation was better than the hurt. So now your heart feels so very far away from the life you are living, and you wonder if you will ever find the bridge back home. This distance is not because your soul has stopped needing love or connection, for that fundamental human desire can never truly be erased. But it is because your heart stopped feeling safe enough to fully receive it, and you are waiting for a moment that finally feels like home. So please stop telling yourself that you are somehow broken, for your heart is simply reacting to the world it has known. Stop calling yourself a cold or an unfeeling person today, just because you have found it difficult to let the world back in. Stop assuming that this distance means you no longer care, for the ache you feel is actually proof of how much you value love. Sometimes this distance means that you have actually cared very deeply, and your spirit is now in a season of necessary and quiet recovery. It means that your heart eventually got tired of the heavy struggle, and it is now asking for the permission to finally be still today. Sometimes it means your heart is not empty or void of life, but it is merely preserving the sacred light it still has left inside. Your heart is just protected and waiting for the exact moment when the environment finally feels safe enough for it to truly emerge. And you must realize that protected hearts do not need more pressure, but they require a steady foundation of absolute internal safety. They need the quiet assurance that they are safe from any further hurt before they can begin to think about lowering their heavy defenses. They need the healing touch of real and consistent gentleness to mend the places where the world was far too harsh for your soul. They need the gift of immense patience as they slowly find their way. For restoration is a sacred process that cannot be rushed today. And they need the simple and profound power of the honest truth to cut through the shadows of the past and bring new light. Because true healing is never about forcing yourself to feel close, but about creating a space where closeness can grow naturally. It is about learning how to feel safe enough to finally soften your edges and trusting that you are loved even in your weariness. This softening happens little by little in the quiet moments of your day, as your spirit begins to trust the warmth of the sun once more. It does not happen all at once or through a single moment of clarity, but through the steady accumulation of safe and gentle experiences. It certainly does not happen perfectly or without any moments of doubt, but it happens truly and deeply within the center of your soul. But it happens honestly when you finally stop performing for the world and start listening to what your heart has been saying all along. And that absolute level of internal honesty changes everything today, as you realize that your internal worth is no longer up for debate. Because now the distance you feel has a real and sacred meaning, and it is no longer just a source of quiet and heavy pain. Please find the courage to let go of the immense pressure that you feel to become instantly close to everyone again. You can finally let go of pretending your heart is fine, while deep inside it still feels miles and miles away. Let go of the habit of judging yourself for needing more time to find your footing and feel safe in the world again. You must realize that heavy shame does not bring hearts back. It only builds the very walls you are trying to lower. But a profound sense of internal safety has the power to heal and to invite your spirit back into the warmth of the light. Absolute and quiet honesty has the power to restore your soul, creating a foundation that can finally support a true connection. The healing touch of consistent gentleness has the power to mend the hidden places where your heart has been bruised and broken. You are fully allowed to admit to yourself in this moment that your heart still feels distant and far from the world. You are allowed to admit that making a real connection still feels hard, and that you are not quite ready to be fully seen. You are allowed to stop pretending that surface-level warmth is enough when your soul is gasping for something much deeper than that. Because your soul is currently asking for much more than social contact. It is searching for the substance of a true and lasting bond. It is asking for the gift of a real and steady presence that does not require you to perform or to be okay today. You are looking for the kind of love that does not rush you, but waits patiently for your heart to find its own natural rhythm. You are looking for the kind of connection that does not force, but offers a gentle invitation to step back into the light. The kind that does not disappear when your heart is still tender, or when the shadows of your past feel a little too heavy. And when you finally stop forcing your heart to heal on command, you create the space for a true and lasting restoration. Your spirit finally begins to find the room it needs to exhale, letting the breath you have been holding for years finally reach your soul. The room of your heart starts to feel less emotionally false and hollow, as it finds a stable and quiet place to finally rest. It starts to truly believe that safety might still be possible for you, as the old lines of pressure begin to fade from your life. This peace does not come because everything in your life is fixed, but because you have found a way to be real today. It comes because the heavy pressure to be something you are not has finally been lifted from your tired and weary spirit. And that sacred and honest environment is exactly where your healing begins, as the warmth of the world finally reaches your soul. The transformation of your heart begins to happen very quietly and softly, in the still and small moments of your everyday life. The return to connection happens very slowly and by small degrees, as you learn to trust the light that is shining on you. But it happens truly and with a depth that you once feared was gone from your world and your story for good. And when the heavy internal pressure finally leaves your spirit, a small warm pulse starts strengthening in the center. Something beautiful and quiet starts to return to you, as you find yourself softening in a safe, quiet space. This return of life does not happen through a crisis, but you feel a new trust line holding steady today. Restoration does not always happen quickly for the soul, but it forms through calm companionship and soft light. Your heart begins to respond to the warmth genuinely, as you feel your guarded center opening a little more. You start noticing what your heart truly responds to, as one safe figure stays near you without any demand. You begin to recognize what actually feels safe and good, as warmth finally reaches much deeper than the surface. You begin to value what feels absolutely true to you, resting in a stillness that feels emotionally full and real. You start to cherish connection that feels mutual and balanced, where your center is held gently and without any panic. You stop mistaking the loud noise of the world for closeness, remaining present with others without any of your old armor. You stop mistaking social attention for being deeply seen, as you feel a new warmth lingering in your heart space. And slowly your heart starts recognizing the profound difference between shallow contact and real connection in quiet space. Your spirit finally allows itself to be vulnerable again, and it softens only where it truly feels safe. Your heart no longer feels a desperate need to fade inward, and it stays present where it feels completely held. You find that your center is warming without any fear today, and it opens where there is no pressure to pretend. And that is exactly how connection returns to your life, as you feel a shared calm presence deepening between souls. This return of closeness does not happen through performance, but through a steady light resting in your own center. Belonging returns through the gift of absolute emotional safety and a gentle closeness that brings a lasting peace. Connection does not come through a sense of urgency, but through a quiet tenderness staying present in the room. Restoration comes through the slow building of trust, as you rest near a trusted presence in total safety. You are not returning by forcing your heart back, but you feel your warm center is no longer far away. Closeness begins growing naturally between you and others by finally giving your soul somewhere safe to land today. You can feel your internal pulse becoming stronger and calmer, and that simple shift changes everything about your world. Because now distance is no longer the only thing you know, and the room of your heart feels emotionally fuller. Now you are finally learning the language of closeness again, standing in an open, shared space with real emotional warmth. Now the whole world feels completely different to you, because you are finally walking in a space of quiet acceptance. It is not because your heart is never distant anymore, but because the feeling no longer causes you to panic in the dark. It is because distance no longer controls every part of your world, allowing you to find your footing and breathe in the middle of it. You finally understand the message of your heart much better now, and that deep clarity has given you back your internal power. You finally stop fearing the return of the old feelings so much, choosing instead to stand your ground with a quiet and steady spirit. You stop blaming yourself for noticing exactly what was missing, realizing that you were always worthy of the love you craved. And that simple internal recognition is what finally creates peace, as the light of understanding starts to open a wider space. Because your heart no longer has to pretend to be anything it is not, and you can finally exist without the pressure to perform belonging. It no longer has to chase what feels emotionally hollow or empty, as it finds a stable and sure environment of rest today. It starts resting in the beauty of what is actually real, finding its foundation in the truth of who you actually are. You start resting in what is fundamentally gentle and kind, allowing your soul to finally be held by a new and lasting grace. You start resting in what is fundamentally safe for your heart today, and trusting that you are loved even when connection feels far. You start resting in what is absolutely honest and shared with others, as the air around you becomes much lighter and warmer. And that specific kind of peace is incredibly quiet and steady, and it starts to fill every empty space within your being. This restoration is not a dramatic or a loud event in your life, but a stable environment of rest where you can finally exist. It is a quiet and a sure peace that will not flicker or fade, for its foundation is built on a truth that cannot be shaken. You feel a profound level of being near to your own soul once again, and that deep connection reminds you that you are perfectly safe. This is the kind of peace that finally lets your heart stay with you as you walk out of the shadows and back into the radiant day. It is the kind of closeness that feels honest enough for you to trust, and a foundation of safety that the world can never shake. It is an open horizon of shared presence that actually lasts, and a beautiful connection that no longer feels far away from you. If your heart feels so very far away from everyone today, please know that this distance is only a season in your story. Feeling this gap does not mean that you stopped needing love, or that your heart is no longer capable of true connection. It may simply mean that your internal spirit got very tired, and it needed to retreat for a while to find its footing again. You have merely become much more careful with your center, protecting the most tender parts of yourself from any further hurt today. You are still in a process of learning how to feel safe in the light, and how to trust the warmth that is finally reaching your soul. But you must remember that even the most tired hearts can heal and find the strength to invite the world back in once again. Even protected hearts can eventually soften their heavy edges if they are given enough patience and absolute kindness to grow today. And even the most distant hearts can eventually come back home, finding a closeness that is real and honest enough to finally stay. This return of closeness does not happen through any external pressure, but through the simple and quiet act of being truly present. Connection returns through the presence of truth, gentleness, and grace. As you finally walk out of the cold and back into the light,